Hello, and welcome to Cognitions, Speaking the Unspeakable with JP and Stacy D. I am JP Craddock, and in for Stacy D today, we have Terry Mason. Terry is the co-owner and director of Spruce, which stands for Special People Requiring Unique Care Equally. There's a lot to be said in that title alone. Terry and I go way back. She was also a foster parent for over 20 years, which is actually how we met. We need to talk about that a little bit. Okay, Terry, we need to talk about that. Okay, but thank you so much for joining me to co-host the show today. Stacy D has had a loss in her family, so our prayers and condolences go out to Stacy D. But thank you so much, Terry, for agreeing to do the show with me today.
Absolutely.
Now, let's talk about Spruce for just a minute. Spruce has been in existence since 2007, right?
Yes.
Okay, and let's talk a little bit about the work that you do at Spruce, because I love Spruce, okay? And the clients is Spruce, okay? So just, can you tell us a little bit about Spruce so that our listeners can know that Spruce exists?
Yes, it's we would be classified under mental health organization. We have clients that we service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They live either in their own, they actually live in their own home, but it's usually a house that we have to actually get for them. And they have staff, like I said, 24/7, 365. Some of them work in the community. Some of them work at specialized workshops. And we deal a lot with their behaviors, activities of daily living to make sure, a lot of verbal prompting goes on, a lot of redirection. But we're real big on doing things in this community because I want them to feel like we do, like everybody else. I want them to feel normal as much as possible, because they do have differences, but they don't really feel it. And I don't allow anybody to make them feel like they're different. And so, like I said, we do a lot of, they go to concerts, they go to movies, they do everything we do, if not even more. So COVID kind of shook them up a little bit, but they handled it pretty well. So now they're kind of back out, they're all vaccinated. So they're out in the community doing things again. We're kind of like a close-knit family because a lot of us have been together since I first started. So some of my clients I've had since day one. So they're like family to me, literally like family to me. So there are a lot of stories there to tell, but that's really pretty much the gist of what we do. We all cover cover each other to make sure we fully staff them. Oh, excuse me. And like I said, we've been together so long that we all know each other. So we gel pretty well. We've had utilized drill services quite a bit, but we make it work and we make it happen. And I absolutely love what I do. I love them and I love what I do.
Yeah, I just want to say, because you had mentioned that some of your consumers, the clients in the program, have been there since you guys started in 2007. And this is so apparent when I am working with some of the clients in the program. They love and adore Terry Mason. Okay. And it really is a sense of family. And I love that. And the staff are wonderful. Like, I know I keep saying, "Ooh, that's one of my favorite staff."
Yes, you do.
And that's one of my favorite staff. I got several favorites. Okay.
Yes, you do.
Because these people are wonderful. And now, Terry, because if it's some bad staff, I'll say like, "Ooh,
yes, you will."
I have referred people to you who I was like, "Oh, he need to be fired."
Yes, you have. Yeah.
Why is he not fired yet? I don't care. I referred him. Get rid of him. He need to be fired. Okay. He was fired. But the staff that I interact with on a regular basis, they are so wonderful. And if I had a family member in Spruce, these are the people that I would want them to work with. So that's always a sign that you have hired good staff to work with your consumers, is if you would entrust them with the care of your own family members. Okay.
Absolutely.
So just your people wonderful. Okay. Hold on to these people.
I plan on it.
Okay. Now, foster care, for our listeners, as I was saying, Terry was a foster parent for over 20 years, and that's how we met. Now, Terry, we like this, okay? She's an additional sister, okay? I got my sister, I got Kelly, I got Terry, okay? And I actually got another, we ain't gonna talk about my sister. Okay, I got Terry. And we had a good time with the kids when you was a foster parent. We tag teamed the kids like it was on.
It wasn't right. I loved every minute of it. Like, I absolutely loved every minute. If a kids, you done sent your angels that they wasn't angels, but he sent them to my house. And when I tell you if something was going on, he was like a father. I would call him and he would be on the way. I'd be there. I got therapy, but I'm on my way. And we would tag team them kids. They didn't know what was going on. They was like, God, they knew you was coming. I'm like, I'm calling Gerald. And we about to get y'all. So it was wonderful. That was a wonderful time for real. It really was.
It really was. Like, I, as you know, also worked with some foster parents who were abusive, which just helped me to appreciate you all the more, because when you know of foster parents who are cussing the kids out, call them everything they can think of to call them, talking about their mama, their dad, it would be a relief to go to Terry's. Like, let me get to Terry's where I ain't got to like try to stop somebody from psychologically abusing the kids.
Right.
And so
that's true.
Foster care gets a bad rap a lot of times. And, some of the bad foster homes are what comes to mind when people think about foster care. And I just want to say there really are far more wonderful foster homes than there are bad ones. And I just want to say that Terry Mason, you was a good foster parent to them babies.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So as our guest co-host, I allow the co-host to come up with the question of the day. So later on in the show, we are going to do mental health and illness in the news. We're going to do the question of the day. But before we get to that, how's everything going? Terry, how's everything in Terry's world?
Everything is going pretty good. Quite busy. I have a little funny with with the clients that I work with, because it's always something with them. It's always something. It's never a dull moment or a dull day. So one of the clients actually that you see and know, they tell them themselves all the time. They don't mean to. They just tell them themselves and they tell them the staff. And I just, So he was at home, and he's not to go next door. He's not even to use the door downstairs to go out anywhere, because he's line of sight. And so this particular day, which was about a few days ago, he goes outside, and apparently on the way back in, he falls and scrapes his arm, scrapes his knee, so he's one of them. He gotta, he's very sick. You gotta be right there with him. He gotta come tell you everything that's going on. He's upset. He done hurt himself. So he runs upstairs and tells us, I hurt my leg. I hurt this. And they like, well, how did you do it? We're like, what happened? And so he's like, I went outside and I went to the lady next door, and we all like, wait a minute, you did what? We let him go on with the story. And then we said, you did what? So he didn't realize he was telling on himself. So once we confronted him on it, so you went outside out that door that you're not supposed to go out of, and you talked to the lady next door that you're not supposed to talk to? And then he had this look of, oh, I didn't even factor that part in. And so he goes, tried to backpedal, but it was too late to backpedal. I said, you're not supposed to go over there. What are we doing? They never think the story through. They just so busy focused on whatever was going on with them. That he done told on himself. And so now he's looking like a deer in headlights trying to, no, I lied, I didn't go over there. Now it's that. And then he has to go back to the actual truth when I get real serious. Okay, I did go over there. I'm not gonna do it again, I promise. So it's never a dull moment with them. It's so much fun. Sometimes they drive me crazy, but I literally love them to death. I do.
He's hilarious. He wanted his attention. He was so focused on getting attention for being injured that he accidentally that he snuck out the house.
Yes.
See, I love that. Mm-hmm. That makes it so much easier to take care of folks when they just accidentally confess.
They do. Sometimes I call them on it. Sometimes I'm just like, okay, because I don't let them. They told on themselves. It just depends on the situation. But yeah, that was one where I had to let them know you messed up. So they are something else. Hard. Yes.
Okay, I have a little question because I think I might need to make a public apology. And Mr. Walker, he don't like coming on the air and he don't like all this. But Mr. Walker, I don't care that you don't want to, I need you to weigh in on this, okay? Because apparently I've been in trouble for since 2012. Okay. I was watching this show called Chris Lee Knows Best. Have you ever heard of that show? You heard of it? Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Walker, you heard of it too. Okay. And this show is hilarious. Let me tell you, there's a son on there by the name of Chase and a grandma. Yeah. And I watched the show just for these two people, okay? Because they off the chain. The grandma, they took her for swimming lessons. She flirting with the little masculine swim instructor. I'm like, he didn't know what to do with all the love that she had for him, okay? Right, so this show is hilarious. Well, I was watching an episode of the show and the father in the show, I can't remember what the father's name is, but he has not been speaking to his son-in-law for some years. Now, this probably was an old episode, okay? And the reason why he went 2 or 3 years without speaking to his son-in-law, is because his son-in-law married his daughter without asking his permission.
Oh.
And so I was watching this and then I started thinking, wait a minute. I didn't ask my father-in-law's permission to marry Nadine. Oh, so I'm like, people still do that? He went years without talking to this man. The man had to apologize. I apologize for proposing to your daughter without your permission. What? So I called Nadine in the room. I said, was I supposed to ask your daddy's permission to marry you? And she says, yeah.
Oh.
What? This woman never told me that. This woman never told me that. Now, I've been hanging out with my father-in-law, having a good time with him all these years, and he probably pissed. Because I never asked permission. How was I supposed to know to do? Do people still do that? Do people still do that?
I had to admit that my wife's father wasn't around, so I didn't have to go through that. So I'm not sure about that.
Well, I would say yes. I mean, I don't think a lot of people do, but I think people still do that as far as tradition and wanting the family. And I think it also depends on the family dynamic of the relationship. I do. Because if the father is estranged and the family kind of, then who you going to ask? Yeah, so it depends on the family dynamic. Yeah, it just depends on I think it depends on the family dynamic.
But people do that. I think you're right. What you said there is that people still do ask for permission. I'll have to talk to my cousin because I know his daughters got married, and I think the young men did have to come over and ask him.
Yeah.
Or get his approval, I guess is more of the thing.
That's what it is.
In these current times,
Yes, some people are still traditional.
It's
they
just
want you to
like
ask
giving out the ring, you know, it's still something you do.
Oh my God, why didn't nobody ever tell me this?
Because we didn't know you didn't ask her daddy. We thought you asked him.
Why didn't you say something back then?
I thought you asked her daddy.
Let me tell you something. You supposed to be my sister. You should have been asking me questions. Did you ask her daddy? You ain't asked me no questions. Didn't nobody tell me that?
It don't matter, because that's just like with the condo situation. When I told you don't buy that Jaguar, I told you do stuff anyway. So what I'm going, yeah. You don't listen?
Okay. There have been a couple of things that you may have warned me not to do.
Yeah, a lot.
Maybe I didn't listen.
Maybe you didn't.
I would have listened to that though. Like, come on.
I thought you had done it.
I am at this moment, because we're going to have to pull this up on YouTube for her daddy. I am at this moment making a public apology to Dr. Rudolph Cumberbatch.
Yes.
Dr. Rudolph Cumberbatch. Rudy, I didn't know, these fools didn't tell me. I'm sorry. I should have asked permission. I'm going to have to divorce this woman, ask permission, and then remarry her?
That probably ain't going to happen.
Okay, I'll have to do all that.
Yeah, I don't got to do all that. No, sir, you don't have to do all that. You silly for that.
Oh, my God. Okay, so I do actually feel kind of bad, because I love Nadine's mom and daddy. These are sweet people.
Yeah,
these people sweet to me, okay? These are sweet people.
Right.
And here I done probably offended him. The good doctor's mad.
Make it right, make it right.
I'm gonna make it right. Okay, mental health and illness in the news. Terry, you got a news story that we need to address, because I have a horrible one. So you go first.
You know, I just have concerns. I was just looking at the news and just thinking about, as a foster parent and as a person just been working with kids since I was 18, I always have loved the male population. That's always been a major concern of mine, to just save young men. That's just has been my thing, my goal, everything. And so I was watching the news, I think it was yesterday, and I saw where 2 or 3 teenagers have been killed in the last 4 or 5 days, and it has really bothered me. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what part can I play, what can we change, what can we do to help, because these kids are dropping like flies, and they're teenagers. They haven't even had a chance to live, and a lot of times they're being killed by other teenagers. So it's like, where is the disconnect? What do we need to do? We need to, I'm just thinking of things, just like I was brainstorming with you earlier today, of what do we have to do to save our kids? Because they dropping like flies. What are we gonna have later on with all these kids dying? Right. What are we gonna do? It's just overwhelming at the thought of it. I mean, I almost wanted to go back to being a foster parent again to try to save some of these kids, but I think I'll do a better job at the group home. We're going to save them by mass as much as we can, but they need help. We got to do something, because social media seems to be, when I look at the history of this, social media seems to be the force that's guiding this. All these people getting into it is usually on social media. If you look at the social media deaths, that's what it usually, it starts on social media, and then they meet somewhere and somebody gets killed. In this particular park, this happens a lot, so I don't know why that's not being addressed if they know that's what's going on.
Yeah, I think I agree. We are in a crisis situation with our teenage population. As you mentioned, multiple deaths just in the past week. And then last week, there were the 2 teenagers who broke into the house and had to shoot out with the police, and which is out of control and connected in a way. I mean, they were playing out something from a video game. I think Grand Theft Auto, but when the kids play the video games, there's a social media component to that because they're able to talk to people all over the world who are playing with them. And I think maybe the problem is we have been so focused on and distracted by COVID, the current state of race relations, our political problems with the police. I think that we may need to shift our focus to our younger generation, to the teenagers. We've been so focused on all these other things, which are major, major problems. Okay. Like we had to focus on those things, but now it is summer. The kids have been pent up for the past year and a half. The pandemic is lifting and restrictions are lifting and they are getting out there. And for all we know, this may have been taking root throughout the pandemic. Right. And now they're able to get out, track each other down, kill. And so we're going to need to shift our focus to what are we going to do with our young people? Yes. And I think it starts with the parents. We could have did this is a whole question of the day that we could have, this is what you should have came up with for the question of the day. Okay.
Whatever.
We ain't got time for all this right now, but I'm going to try to just real quick. It starts with the parents, kind of like you were saying. You thought about, man, I need to go back to foster parenting or with the group home, because that is a parental relationship. It starts with the parents. And I think we need to coach parents on assessing for the mental state of their children. If their children are struggling in some areas, struggling socially, parents need to be able to recognize depression and anxiety and all of these things so that they can intervene before it escalates to the point that their kid is out shooting at somebody or getting shot at or committing suicide, because the suicide rates are also skyrocketing. And so if we just start with the parents and parent education. And so one of the things that I'm going to talk to Stacy D about is us needing to do a little bit more focusing on that as far as the parenting piece, and on because we have another YouTube channel for the overflow of things that we can't cover on the show. And we're going to need to start posting some parenting education videos on, how parents can get more tuned into their kids so that they can stop these atrocities from happening. And so, but you're right, it's like out of control. Okay, here's a story that we need to talk about. Have you heard of the Doomsday Mom and Dad?
Terry? No, I have not, sir.
Okay, apparently there's a gentleman who killed his first wife and his 2 stepchildren about a year ago, and he's in court now. Him and his current wife are being arraigned on this crime. He said that the kids were zombies, quote unquote. The affidavit reads that they were members of the Church of the Firstborn and had a mission to rid the world of zombies and dark spirits.
Wow.
And this man, he killed his first wife and his 2 stepchildren. They're in this church and they're trying to rid the planet of zombies. And so, we have to be careful about, criticizing people's religious beliefs, but like this fool killed 2 kids.
Right.
And so if some members of this church are offended by what I am about to say, I do not care. Like, he's killing kids trying to kill zombies.
Right.
Okay. And
sure.
The mental health side of this is when a person holds certain beliefs that are odd or bizarre. Was that for me?
No, shut your mouth.
Oh, okay. Because I tell them I'm busy. I'm trying to do this radio show. Okay. Now, when it comes to a person holding beliefs that are odd or bizarre and are not grounded in reality, and there's no evidence to support these beliefs, and when you present evidence that is contrary to those beliefs, they hold on to them. That is called delusional disorder. Delusional disorder is one of the psychotic disorders, because let's take schizophrenia, for example. Schizophrenia is a psychotic disorder that is hallucinations and delusions. And a lot of times people are so focused on the hallucinations, well, they're hearing voices and they're seeing things that aren't there, that people forget the delusions can be just as disturbing and just as dangerous. Because when a person is delusional, and I don't know this couple, I'm just assuming that because they are trying to rid the planet of zombies, that they might be delusional, okay? To a delusional person, what they believe it as strongly as you believe that your name is Terry Mason.
Right, right.
And if somebody tried to convince you, listen, your name really is like Chrysynthia,
right.
You'd be like, fool, my name is Terry May. I don't care what you say. No, really, that ain't your name. And so that's what we have to remember, is that delusions, when they take hold, a person is psychotic at that point. Yes. And people underestimate the weight of delusional disorder. But when you think about it, we had a president in office for 4 years who was clearly delusional. Delusional, yes. This fool truly believes that an election was stolen from him. Still today. To this day. Like, I believe that he really believes it, which means he's delusional, which means he's psychotic, but people are still wanting to put a psychotic person back in office. Yeah. And sometimes people buy into the delusions. That's when you end up with cults and things like that. Because if a person is delusional and also very convincing, they will convince other people that their delusion is real. Which kind of crosses over into what's called shared psychotic disorder, which we don't have enough time to go through all the diagnoses and everything. But this is a horrible story. And so I just want everyone to, when you meet someone who is delusional, do not underestimate the extent of the delusions, because when it comes to delusions of paranoia, and people who believe that someone is after them, someone is watching them, they are tapping their phone, they are spying on them with binoculars. Like, I have known people who had a house, like 25, 30 cell phones, all taken apart into pieces because they were delusions of paranoia, and they believed that people were spying on them through their cell phones. And so we have to be careful when it comes to this and assess for a level of dangerousness, because sometimes they get to the point where they like, I'm going to do something about this because I'm tired of it. And that's when it can get dangerous, and they can become homicidal because they are tired of being watched, followed, spied on, or in this case, they are tired of the zombies, and they have decided I'm gonna take it upon myself to rid the planet of zombies, and we end up with 2 dead children.
Dead children. Yeah, that's terrible.
So that's, mental health and illness in the news. Okay. Terry Mason, you came up with a question of the day for us today. What are we talking about?
I did. My question of the day is, why do women make excuses for men's behavior?
Now, what are your thoughts on that? Because I got thoughts on that.
I'm sure you do. I have several thoughts. I think some of it, honestly, when I think of raising boys, and a lot of coddling goes on, and how sometimes between the difference of raising a boy and as far as women, raising a boy and raising young ladies, we kind of lean more toward coddling the boy because we feel like it's so rough for him out there. It's rough for a man. So as he gets older, we don't hold him as accountable as we should. And so they get used to that. And I think as we get older as women, we do the same thing. We still are not holding men accountable for their actions. We just don't, because I have been guilty of it as well. And I'm trying to make things easier, and I'm excusing your behavior and the excuses that you have given for your behavior, until I'm just like, either I deserve better, or you have to do better. Or sometimes I may realize sometimes they're just not taught. They're just some people simply don't know, and they're just not taught. And either some are willing to learn, or some are okay with this behavior, because if you don't put up with it, somebody else will. And so you have to, in raising our young men, we just got to do better. And I know for me, it's just a lot of reasons that I think that women put up with it. It could be low self-esteem. And a lot of times men or women, if they're weaker in the mind, the men, it doesn't take much for them to get their mind. I've seen that as well. And they just, I look at them and I don't understand why they are allowing themselves to be treated this way, or they're dealing with this behavior. And in talking to them, all they can really say is I just love them. And I think sometimes it's you in love with the idea of what y'all are, not really what it is, or what it was in the beginning versus what it is now. You still stuck on what it was 3 years ago. He ain't been that person in 3 years, but you're stuck with that idea. If you learn to let go of the idea, the man is easy to let go after that. But we have to really think about, as women, why are we allowing, why are we dealing with this type of behavior? As women, we have to hold men accountable, because if nobody ever does, when I think about a man that has 10 or 15 kids, nobody has ever made him child support, made him he's not being held accountable. So he's continuing with the behavior because he either doesn't think anything is wrong with it because he's not being held accountable, or he's not being held accountable, or they just, from what I've seen, he's not being held accountable. And so he thinks nothing's wrong with it, or he does and he doesn't care. Because I've seen both. And I've discussed it with men before, and some of them simply say that, like, I can find somebody else to do it. It's not a big deal. Or some of them be like, I just didn't know. I didn't know I was hurting her. I didn't know this, or they was raised this kind of way. And so that's why they're exhibiting this behavior. And if, again, they're allowed to do it, why would they change if that's not really what they want to do?
So this is really interesting. So you're saying that this starts way back, though, like with mothers not holding their sons accountable, and daughters being taught to not hold males accountable, which then also causes young boys to grow into men who are not accustomed to being held accountable. And so it's really like a two-way street. You have the women who are not holding them accountable, and then you have the men who are not expecting to be held accountable. Okay. And so it just becomes an unending cycle. Mm-hmm. So what does it eventually take to break that cycle? What's the wake-up call?
I think it depends on the person. I think with somebody with low self-esteem, the wake-up call is you. You have to get to a point where you will not deal with anybody treating you any way they want to, because I really firmly believe a man or anybody will only do what you allow him to do to you. So if you decide you're not going to be treated this way, you're not going to be this, either they're going to respect it because they love you enough to a man will only, and that's the one thing I think as women, with the nurturing part of us and the waiting and the patience, is we'll wait and we hold our hope that they're going to be this person, and you have to deal with who this person is, not what you thought what they're going to be or what you think they're going to be. You have to deal with the person that's right in front of your face. And so in dealing with that, it's been, for me, it's been a challenge in looking to what I thought they were going to be or what they portrayed themselves to be, instead of dealing with the person that's right in front of my face and what he's saying. Because a lot of times we're listening and we're listening to what they're saying, but we're not going by the actions. If we go by their actions, we'll definitely do something different. But we're going by what they say, we hold our hope, and we're just nurturers by nature. But we have to realize we're more important, and we have to expect more out of men when it comes to us. And that's the point that I had to get to, where I expected more, because I'm giving 110% and pouring into you, but I'm not getting anything back. So I had to get to a point where I'm like, I deserve better. And if I can't get better, then I'll just be by myself until I get somebody that's ready to be with somebody like me. And that doesn't mean, and I try to, I have male friends, so we have a lot of banter and conversations, and some of them say why they treat women the way they do. Some of it's because they're allowed to. They're simply allowed to, or they haven't, and that's a big thing. Like I said, with women, we always want to change. And I've learned a long time ago, you can't change a man. A man changes because he wants to. Period. He changed because he wants to. You can't change a man. And I hear that just in a lot of relationships. You try to change me, or women. If I just do this, and it's never about what it's, he's going to change because he wants to. And you wonder why he changed for this woman, but he didn't change for you. Because you allowed him to treat you this kind of way, and she didn't. And they make their own decisions. You just have to make yours.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I want us to focus a little bit more on something that you said about self-esteem, because when I encounter this in therapy with female clients, one of the things that I address with them is that breaking the cycle starts with them loving themselves enough to know what they deserve and how they deserve to be treated in relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It all starts, and this goes for men and women, because Stacy D and I, we did a couple of shows on male victims of domestic violence. This applies across the board. When it comes to unhealthy relationships, it starts with a person knowing their worth and their value. Because in this world, in this life, people are going to value you based upon how you have presented your value. So if you present yourself as a diamond, you're going to be treated as a diamond. If you present yourself as, aluminum, you're going to be treated like aluminum. And so it starts with knowing your worth and knowing your value and being able to say, I do not have to tolerate this. I do not have to live this way. And whether he decides to do better or not, it still starts with her knowing her worth and her value, because then you can make an appropriate decision based upon whether or not your spouse or your partner is going to value you enough to treat you well, treat you as you deserve to be treated, or they're not.
Right.
But yeah, I agree that this is an issue that it cannot be resolved without first stepping back and looking at one's self-esteem. Because most times in life, we can't change another person anyway. Like, he gonna be who he's going to be. Or if it's a man in an abusive relationship, she's gonna be who she's going to be. What you can change is you, and your worth and your value and what you are willing to tolerate. Because what people have to remember is that there are many, many people on the planet who do not abuse other people, who do not mistreat other people. Like, you do not have to settle for that type of treatment. You don't have to settle for that type of a relationship. Like, but you can't get to the healthy partners and mates if you stuck in this abusive cycle and like, you don't know your worth, you don't know your value, and you letting a fool treat you like crap.
That's right. That's right.
So I see a little bit more to this. When I think about this question and women making excuses for men's behavior, I think that is rooted in fear also. The fear that if I set a standard for how I am to be treated, if I value myself too much to allow this to happen to me, and I confront this behavior, I'm going to run the risk of losing this man and this relationship. And that fear of loneliness is playing a vital role in women and men making excuses for the behavior. And in therapy, I will hear so many excuses. Well, he da 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 da, and he da 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 da. And so it's like, if all of that is not true, then what does that put you in a position that you have to do? Like, if there are no excuses and rationalizations for this behavior, now what you got? But that fear of ending up alone will cause people to not set boundaries and have a standard for how they should be treated. Because it's like, I'd rather be in this relationship and waiting on this person to change than be single. Because somehow single equals alone, which isn't a problem. The problem is alone equals lonely. And that is not supposed to be the case.
Right.
And so I think that, because you were talking about childhood and this is something, self-esteem is taught.
Yeah.
Like, people have to teach their kids how to love and value themselves.
Be confident, yes.
And so when you're teaching a kid their worth and their value, you're also supposed to be teaching them that just because they're not in a relationship, just because they're single, does not mean that they are of less value. And being alone it should not mean being lonely. Learn to enjoy your own company. Learn to be content with you. And so this is something that, because I was saying to a young lady the other day, she stayed in an unhealthy relationship. She can't handle being alone. She don't like doing anything alone. She does not, like, she spends all her weekends surrounded by her friends. She does not venture out alone. And I was saying to her, okay, you want this man and you want him to enjoy being in your company, but you don't enjoy being in your own company. Yeah. You don't enjoy you.
Right, that's correct.
You bored with you. If you bored with you, how are you expecting him to enjoy you? And so I'm trying to work with her on, why are you not able to enjoy your company? She said she go crazy. She goes crazy. She's like, if I'm at home by myself, I cannot handle it. She will leave her house. I'll be dang near paying Nadine to leave this house and let me have by myself. Like, woman, ain't you got somewhere to go?
Right. I love, sometimes our lives get so busy that I love the moments that I can just be by myself, just relax and enjoying me. And that's it. Because if you can't be by yourself, how you gonna be with somebody else?
Right. You enjoy your own company.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, even with kids, because like I said, this needs to be taught in childhood. When the kids would say, well, Dad, I'm bored. You bored with you? Why are you bored? Because I don't get bored with me. Y'all can go pile in that car and leave here with your mama, and it's going to be party time up in this joint, okay? I'm going to kick it till y'all come back, okay? Why are you bored with you? No, I'm not. Yeah, obviously, you bored with you. When people are bored, they are bored with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when you kind of need to reflect inward and get in touch with you and learn to enjoy you and learn how to fill your time with you.
Right.
These are the steps to preventing that desperation, because I think that a lot of people, they're desperate. They are desperate to have someone and they settle.
I agree. And I definitely agree with the settling. Definitely.
They settle for fools who they should not be with.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, well, being with them is better than being with myself.
And it's not. Life is too short for that. I mean, I just, I can't imagine whether I have one day or 30 years left on this earth spending it with somebody that I'm not happy. I can be happy by myself than be spending my next 30 years with somebody that makes me unhappy or that I'm just unhappy with. I don't want to come home. I don't want to be at home. That has to be a miserable existence. And I've seen people in relationships like that. And I'm like, and they're just miserable. I can't even imagine. I just can't. I just can't.
And what do you do with those people who they're miserable in their marriage or in their relationship, but when they think about not being in it, they imagine themselves being more miserable. So it's like, I'd rather suffer in this mess than suffer by myself. Like, it's hard to crack through that. When you know someone like that, we both know people like that.
We do. And I don't understand it. I really don't. We've had plenty of conversations and try to think of solutions. And, that's when you start drowning yourself in other stuff that's not healthy because you're so miserable. You know what I'm saying? And then that's how sometimes stuff leads to drugs or you doing things that you normally wouldn't do. That mess up you as a person on the inside. And so you're not the person that you normally would be because you're so miserable. And that's so sad to me. Life is just too short to be in a situation like that. I know people that have stayed together for their children, and I understand that, but then I don't, because the kids know. And in talking to the kids, they knew that their parents wasn't in love. They wasn't even sleeping in the same room, and it messed with them. They would have been happy had they had two happy parents outside of the home instead of two unhappy parents that didn't talk to each other, didn't sleep in the same bed, wasn't he out doing his thing, just all of that. Like, what are you teaching your kids?
Right. And a lot of times what people fail to think about is when you do that, you're raising your kids to believe that that's what a relationship looks like. That's what a marriage looks like.
And they don't want to be
two
married.
Miserable people.
Yes.
And so then they wonder why their kids grow up and end up in relationships where they are settling for abuse and settling to be, unhappy, because they're like, well, this is all I saw growing up. Like, this isn't normal. Well, no, you're supposed to want better for yourself. Really? What does that look like? I didn't see. Did you want better for yourself? You didn't teach me nothing about wanting better.
Right. That's true. That's true.
Now, I grew up watching you two fools do what y'all do. Now, here's another thing to think about, though. For a lot of people who say, well, I'm staying together for the kids, and this is just me speaking the unspeakable, that's a bald-faced lie. And sometimes I tell people, like, you telling a bald-faced lie, like, and so you can lie to yourself. You can't just come up in therapy and lie to me. You are saying you stand in this relationship for the kids. That is a lie. You are using the kids as an excuse, which is unfair to them. Because what happens is, as the kids get older, they start telling the kids, well, I stayed for y'all. And so then the kids are like, this is our fault?
Yeah, that's true.
What? And so I have a client who told me her daughter begged her to leave her father.
Wow.
And got mad at her
for staying.
This is after she was grown, though. She had witnessed this unhealthy relationship for 19 years before she finally was like, I'm mad at you and I've lost respect for you because you stayed in this unhealthy relationship. Why do you stay with him? Now, how are you saying you stayed for the kid? The kid's like, don't do me no favors because this mess is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. You two people need to part ways.
Right.
And so I don't think it's fair to put that burden on kids, telling them I stayed for y'all. It's like, he was punching you in the face. You think we enjoyed watching that our whole lives?
Exactly. What did it teach them? It had an effect on them for sure.
Right. It teaches them that, no matter what, you just hang in there. You might be getting punched in the face. You just hang in there for the kids. No. And then the kids grow up and they repeat that cycle and it becomes a multi-generational curse.
It does. So, and what about the ones that stay and don't make it out?
Exactly.
In these abusive relationships. And then, like you said, I've seen that where girls have been they just followed the cycle of being in an abusive relationship because that's how they were raised. I've seen it in my own family from my grandma with her kids, and my mother decided that that's what she wasn't going to do, and that's what made me, even though I saw it because of my grandmother, but my mother was like, and so I was right out. That's why I couldn't, because she was like, no, we're not doing that. She didn't have it. And so, but when I saw it, it made me look. I look for all kind of signs of you raising your voice. I'm like, oh, I ain't gonna be able to do it, because no signs of anything that's gonna lead to abuse in me. That's a problem for me. I don't care how much in love I think I am. If I sense any type of abuse that I'm done. That's it for me. But they do repeat. I've seen it, and it's hard to break it once they're in it. It's like, what do you teach a young girl that's used to seeing this, or she equates that with love? How do you break that?
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, and just like your mother taught you, you don't stay in an abusive relationship. You don't do that mess. Mm-hmm. That breaks that multi-generational curse. Because when I think about, and you know my sister's there.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody abusing her. Okay.
No.
Because I watched my mother teach her, you are never, ever to tolerate abuse. That is not acceptable. Right. And my sister, over the years and the relationships that I have seen her in, I have never seen her stay in an abusive relationship. I've never seen it. And so once again, we're back to a situation that starts with the parenting, because some of these other, like people who I see who stay, they're like, well, my mama stayed and my grandma stayed. And it does teach people that you do not have value if you are not in a relationship, which is ridiculous.
Right.
To grow up feeling like you don't have value if you're not in a relationship. This whole you complete me thing, I tell people all the time, that's some crap for the movies, okay? This world ain't a romantic comedy.
It's not. It absolutely is not.
You complete me. No, You need to be a whole person.
Yes.
Who wants half of a person? I don't want some woman, I gotta complete her. If I gotta complete you, that means you are half of a person. You are 50% of a person. And what is 50%? A failure. You gotta get at least 60% to get a D.
Yeah, that's true.
So if a woman is like, you complete me, oh hell, you have? Oh, I ain't gonna be able to do it. You half a heifer. I ain't gonna be able to do it. I ain't gonna be able to do it. Cause I'm showing up a whole person.
Right, right.
My mama didn't raise me to be no half of a person. My mama didn't teach me you need a woman to complete you. My mama's like, you gonna be a complete person. By the time you roll up out this house, that's what you gonna be. You're gonna be able to function and think independently, feed yourself, take care of a house, take care of kids. You're gonna be able to do all these things. Because if something happens, even if you end up in a fairy tale marriage, God forbid, if something were to happen to your wife and you are left raising your kids, what you gonna do? Well, I'm only half a person, so these kids gonna be
half,
and dirty and what?
That's true.
Anybody who thinks that you need someone to complete you, do not do that to another person. You need to become a whole person first and then find a mate.
Right.
Stop showing up to the table and you half a person.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You all a failure because you half. Who the hell want half or something? Half ain't never been enough for nothing.
You want a whole. I mean, you should go and you should want to be a whole person before you're with somebody else, because dating somebody or being with somebody who has so much baggage and they don't know how to love, they don't know how to do this, it wears you down. It wears you out. And so then you're empty. You empty because you're trying to fix all this stuff on them.
Yes. And so it's that mentality, that thinking that causes people, when they are single, they feel like, well, I'm only half. I'm not a whole person and I'm nothing unless I have someone else. And so this was a wonderful topic for us to discuss today. Thanks again, Terry Mason, dear friend and sister, for coming on the show. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Once again, our prayers go out to Stacy D. And
absolutely.
Remember, yes, worry about nothing and pray about everything.
Everything.
Thank you for joining us. God bless.
God bless.